Hello. Today I want to talk about English language. And from what I can observe, it was created to cast what some would say is spells, particular magic, by figures of power at a particular moment in human time, and to really limit us. And when you limit language, then you really limit expression, which obviously can limit one's being and one's ability to expand and to grow. And I won't go too much into that. But from what I can see in the realm of the English language, and the reason I'm sharing these ponderings is because I very much work in the realm of language and of words with a lot of my work that I engage with on a full-time basis. If full-time work, whatever amount of hours you consider that to be full-time. I mean, for me, it's about 40 hours a week. So the English language, from my observation, is full of a lot of contradiction and a lot of opposite to the original meaning of particular words as well, or they have been changed over time. And it's quite interesting to observe. And I actually had a lovely example of this occur today while I'm recording this in my workplace, where we were discussing the different types of custodianship of, say, land here in the land of Oamaru, Australia, in the state of Queensland, as they call it. And that's very relevant when you have, more than one being sharing their custodianship. And they have a term called joint tenants or tenants in common. And the comment was, how could that be so if they called the owner, that's what they were referring them to, how could the owner be called a tenant when they're the owner of the property? And I reminded them that the word tenant, once upon a time in the English language, sort of going back to that sort of Anglo-French sort of language about 13th century, it once actually meant a person that held title or lease of a property. And today, in a place like Oamaru, Australia, we would usually only use that word in the context of someone who is leasing a property, not someone who is necessarily custodian or owner, as they might like to call it. And that in itself shows how the context of a word has been changed over time. Now, obviously, a place like Oamaru, Australia, and this human-created law that many of us engage in, that was based, most of it actually, from English created, law from the supposed land of England, supposed law of the supposed land of England. So therefore, a lot of terms, especially in the human-created Australian law, use very much the same terms, although we might not, in our modern-day culture, use them in the same context today. So that's just one example, and it's just interesting. I was thinking about actually discussing this topic, and this example came up. So another one, is the word outlaw. And what that actually originally meant was a person who is excluded from the protection of law, and probably more so used in the context of human-created law, because no one is ever excluded from universal law. Another topic, another day. Whereas nowadays, people often use the term outlaw as someone that is excluded from the law, or is working outside the law, where that actually has different connotations to it than someone who is excluded from the protection of the law. So it's really interesting. You know, that's just one example. Another example I could give you is like a saying, right? And the saying that some may recognize today is, the devil is in the details. Once upon a time, it actually was, God is in the details. So again, that goes to show you how, you know, a saying of particular sort of cultural and obviously religious influence has been changed. A word that I personally am attempting to diet out of my dialogue is the word awesome. Because awesome, in its original meaning, actually meant things like fear, terror, grief, and pain. Hence why I'd like to dialogue the word awesome out of my language. So, yeah. And then we've got words where they mean almost contradictory things. So the word custom. You know, the word custom can be used in the context of common practice, or it can be used in the context of special treatment, different treatment. And that could almost be quite contradictory, those two meanings of one word. Then you got words like cute, which was once used for the context of shrewd or clever. Another word, bully, actually used to mean sweetheart. Another word that I'd probably like to share with you is history. Now, this is when you start really breaking down words. You know, when you're getting into etymology and you're breaking them down. History is obviously quite an easy one to sort of break down, and then it can obviously be broken down much further. But his story, you start thinking about that, then you start to understand more about where that word comes from, and or in the context of how it's used. And, you know, when you're thinking about his story, where's his story? That can lead you into a whole lot of ponderings with the English language around that. And I guess my recommendation, my further sharing of this, should I say, is that if you want to learn more about the English language, or any language really, but if you're speaking English a lot, then I would probably want to look into things like the etymology of the words that you use. And, you know, we talk a lot about dieting food, you know, you could be dieting your technology use, but have we considered dieting our dialogue? Have we considered that there's words in which we may express that are not actually very expansive in our being? And can we choose to not engage with particular words coming out of our mouths and our minds? And could we swap them for other words until eventually there's almost no need for an expression like that to be expressed? So yes, if you've got some interesting words that you would like to share with us in their original meanings, you're welcome to. Leave that in the comment section down below, and you're also welcome to reach out to me on my various social media platforms. They're also in the description box of this video if you're watching on YouTube, and I will see you in the next vlog.